Hello to my fellow Through the Ages players. In this video, I'm going to talk about how some concepts that I learned as a poker player can apply to Through the Ages. And actually, what I decided to do was to keep the videos a little on the shorter side. I'm going to divide them up into separate videos. So in this one, I'm only going to speak about one concept in particular. Hopefully I'll have time to do a few more to explore some other concepts that overlap between poker and Through the Ages. All right, I think it's safe to say that a lot of players in this game have experience with other competitive games, be they board games or card games or what have you. I know I've seen Magic the Gathering mentioned before and chess in the TTA Discord. For me, that game is poker. Through the Ages is my current favorite game, but I would say that poker is my favorite game of all time. I have a decent amount of experience playing the game on and off. Had some cool moments like doing well in some major tournaments. I'd say what I really like about the game is that each hand is a new puzzle to solve. There are a myriad of factors that you have to consider when you're making a decision on how to play your hand, ranging from probability to psychology or just logic, simple logic, and to just name a few. There's more, of course. And that's what I like about Through the Ages, too. No two situations are alike. There's always interesting decisions to make, new scenarios to play, new lessons to be learned, and interesting spots in the game to discuss with your friends. I think a lot of the concepts and skills that you learn playing in other games at a high level can be applied to Through the Ages. So if you're already good at another game, if you can recognize situations in TTA that are similar to those that come up in your game of choice, it could maybe help guide you in your decision making. So for me, I'm thinking about poker here. The first Through the Ages skill that reminds me of poker is hand reading. Being able to read your opponent's hand is a vital skill in poker. Now, in the movies, they sort of rely on physical tells for that. They make it seem like the main character knows what an opponent has by the way they blink or sweat, the way their hand shakes, or the way they eat an Oreo cookie. But in reality, hand reading is a little more like a deductive process where each action that your opponent takes throughout the hand further narrows down their potential holdings. So by the final round of betting, you've eliminated a lot of possibilities and can put them on a tight range of hands. And that really helps you figure out how to act on your own hand. And as you can imagine, top players can get really good at this. The professional poker players, they have those moments where they able to make a big fold or sniff out a huge bluff and call with a weak hand, but be correct. So that's the benefit of hand reading in poker. How does it apply to Through the Ages? Well, I think one of the ways the skill manifests itself in TTA is through the event deck. Have you ever watched an opponent's turn and noticed that they made a move that's just slightly out of the ordinary? It could be a mistake, of course, but I think a more likely explanation is it's because of an event they seeded. So I'll go over just a couple of quick theoretical examples just to illustrate the point, and then go to the more constructive in-game examples. But let's say hypothetically that your opponent built a temple or a theology when they didn't need to in age 1. Probably there's a more useful action they could do rather than just build an extra temple for no reason. That could be an indication that immigration is in the deck. Let's say you're playing against a player who seeded all of the events this round, and so he has perfect knowledge of the event deck, and he or she pushes an event when he or she has 2 discontent workers. Obviously then Rebellion is very unlikely to be in the deck. Also keep in mind the Joan of Arc player and the Nostradamus player have extra information about the event deck. So let's say that the Joan player skips politics and researches cartography. That's too obvious of an example, actually. I think you know what that means. There's probably a good colony on top. But let's say Joan, take the example from before, builds a theology to become the strongest. Then it's a little more complicated because there could be a strength event on top, or it could be a happy face event, rebellion or immigration. Now, if a different player took that same action, you would be able to, you wouldn't think that there is a strength event necessarily, because that action doesn't give a strength bonus to that player unless they're Joan of Arc. So you would think it's a happy face event in that case, or possibly cultural influence, but I doubt it. That's a little bit of an extreme play for cultural influence. So by doing a little hand reading, you can really improve your odds of making good decisions with respect to what's in the event deck. Now, let's take a look at an actual in-game example. This is the last turn of a 4-player game in the International Championship, and MWI has 1 action left and 4 resources to spare before finishing the fast food chains. Now, he has a few choices. He can build a drama here for 2 extra culture. He can build the bread and circus for 2 extra culture with Pierre. He can also build an AJ farm or an AJ mine, and he can upgrade, or what he can do is research modern infantry and then upgrade a swordsman to modern infantry to get ahead of Gandon for possible impact of strength. But Gandon can just react to that, and that would come at the cost also of putting this extra population on the board for the fast food chains. So I think that's a little less likely. But he has those other options in mind, and that's, the modern infantry play is still a viable one. Let's see what he decides to do. Okay, and he builds that Age A farm. Now this tells me a few things. Well, first of all, I'm almost positive that Impact of Industry is not in the deck, because if you take a look at everybody's production, MWI is the industry leader, and he is probably the only one who would have seeded that event into the deck with the way the game played out. Now, you might say, well, what about Weidenbaum? He might have seeded that event because he gets the 3 extra culture for seeding, so it would actually be a neutral event versus MWI for him, and then positive event against me and Gandon. But if you take a look at his board, most of his production, or 3 of his production, comes from the Suez Canal. So the Impact of Industry would not be that amazing of an event for him. And this also tells me a little bit about impact of architecture, impact of variety, and impact of competition. He thinks that the impact of, oh my god, I'm blanking. The impact of agriculture is more likely than those other impacts. And in fact, I suspect he seeded it himself, because otherwise this play wouldn't make any sense. You're getting the 2 culture instead of 1 for the fast food chains by putting it into a mine or farm, but you're missing out on the 2 culture production and the 1 for the fast food chain. So it's a break-even play this way, and it doesn't really improve balance either, or harmony. So it's been a while since this game's been played, so he probably had a reason to do this. But I think one thing is pretty clear. The impact of industry is not in the deck. So practically speaking, how is this going to affect my turn? Well, if I have the chance to do a little impact optimizing and have like spare actions where I can upgrade food or upgrade rock production, I'm going to choose to upgrade food. And if I have to tear down something, I'm going to tear down a mine before I tear down a farm. Okay, I think that's it. I'll move on to another example. Okay, here's a game from the Intermezzo Championship. And what I want to do here is, let's see if you can figure out an event that I seeded into the deck just by watching how this turn plays out, without any additional context or knowing what the game state is or seeing the other players' boards. Let's just see if you can pick up on the clues of my turn to figure out an event that's in the deck. Okay, so I research journalism, take Mandela for 3 CA, elect Mandela, upgrade a temple to avoid an uprising, delete a warrior, and build a journalism and upgrade a warrior. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a second. If you don't want to be spoilered on what the event is, pause right now because I'm going to reveal it in about 5 seconds. That event is Iconoclasm. As you saw, I started the hand with Gaudi, and I used him to research journalism. The board is actually giving me a good opportunity to lean into a Gaudi build here. The Opera is available for 2 CA, and the Team Sports is also available for 1 CA. Mandela is a good leader, and I could take him without the penalty, but he's not really that much better than Gaudi in this spot. And as you can see, I left with 12 science, so I'm going to be able to research Kanman next turn and get those extra CAs. If he falls down to 1 next turn, it might be a different story. I might decide to take him. But without the Iconoclasm in the deck, it probably makes sense to spend this turn getting into a nice Gaudi setup, and then maybe taking one of these military techs like Cannon. Although I should mention, yeah, someone revealed the classic army this turn, so Cannon is more optional. It'd be nice to have for age 3 tactics, but it's not a big deal if you can't take it. So I decided to go for the Mandela pick and try to get that early Iconoclasm out of the deck. Now, as played, the decision didn't really work out that well. Iconoclasm was the last card in the deck, and there were good leaders on the row for Graz and Yelp to take. So, you know, that didn't really work out. I kind of wish I played the turn differently, but at the same time, it could have worked out very differently. I could have forced them to play without a leader for several turns, just depending on the way the cards fell on the row. And that's another big poker concept too, variance, that I could maybe talk about in a future video. Well, that's a nice large topic. But yeah, I think that's a good example of hand reading there. If you were my opponent, you probably would have a suspicion that Iconoclasm is in the deck. All right, I think that's a good place to stop. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. You know, I'm doing this video for fun, and hopefully I'm going to do a few more if I get the time. But the main point I want to get across is you probably have strong skills that you developed playing other games that can be applied to Through the Ages. I know a lot of you are very good board game players. So next time you have a tough decision, maybe stop and think about if you've encountered this decision before in a different game, maybe in a slightly different way, but some of the concepts can apply to Through the Ages. All right. In fact, actually, let me know in the comments if you have any insight into how your favorite game has some skills that are similar to those that you see in Through the Ages, or some concepts. It'll be interesting to see if you guys think there's an overlap there. All right, I'll let you go. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day, and yeah, I'll see you next time.